Conflict. Just hearing the word, right? It makes most of us kind of tense up. But what if I told you it's not something you have to avoid, but something you can actually master? The thing is, conflict is a totally fundamental part of how we interact, and really understanding it is the first step to turning a nasty clash into a powerful collaboration.
So just think about it for a sec. The last time you were in a disagreement, maybe at work, maybe at home, what was your gut reaction? Yeah, for most of us, it's just uncomfortable. It's stressful. You just wish the whole thing would go away. But it really doesn't have to be like that.
So, what are we even talking about when we say conflict? Let's make sure we're all on the same page. At its core, conflict is simply a perception. It all kicks off the moment you believe someone is threatening or is about to threaten something you care about. It's that simple and, that complicated. All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start by uncovering the hidden engine of conflict. Then we'll pinpoint its 6 main sources. From there, we'll map out its 5-step journey, check out different ways to resolve it, and learn how to negotiate for a real win-win. And finally, we'll look at the 2 very different faces of conflict. Okay, first up, conflict, the hidden engine. And that subtitle is key. It's not just between people. Because, it's not always that big, loud argument we picture in our heads. It's actually working on a few different levels.
So for starters, conflict can be intrapersonal. That's the battle happening inside your own head, like when you're wrestling with a big decision. Should I take that new job or not? Then you've got interpersonal conflict. This is the classic stuff. You and a coworker butting heads over a deadline. And finally, there's intra-group conflict. This is when a whole team is divided, arguing over the best way to launch a new product.
Okay, so that leads to a big question. Where does all this friction even come from? Let's get into these 6 main sources of disagreement. The cool thing is, once you learn how to spot these triggers, you're honestly halfway to solving the problem. A lot of conflicts kicks off with big external shifts. Just think about it, right? A new boss comes in, they roll out a new process, the whole company pivots in a new direction. Anytime the way things are gets shaken up, conflict is almost guaranteed, because people just react to that kind of disruption in very different ways.
And then, of course, you've got personality clashes. I mean, we've all been there. Sometimes it really is that simple. You just don't click with someone. Their whole approach just kind of grates on you. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's just you're wired differently.
Now, sometimes it goes way deeper than just personality. We're talking about different sets of values. When a fight is really about someone's core beliefs, things get tricky. What you see as a simple business decision, someone else might see as a huge moral issue. These are, hands down, the toughest conflicts to navigate. All right, another huge trigger, threats to status. A lot of the time, conflict is really about our place in the pecking order. The moment people feel like their authority, their respect, or just their position is being challenged, boom, they get defensive. And that is a perfect recipe for a dispute. Okay, this next one is absolutely fascinating. Contrasting perceptions. It's wild, but 2 people can witness the exact same thing happen and walk away telling 2 completely different stories. All of our past experiences and backgrounds act like these little filters, creating totally different views that can spark some major misunderstandings. And finally, we have what might be the most important one of all: lack of trust. Trust is basically the glue that holds everything together, or lets it all fall apart. Without it, you start second-guessing everyone's motives. You assume there are hidden agendas. A lack of trust is like the perfect soil for all these other conflicts to grow. All right, so now we know where conflict comes from. Let's look at how it actually plays out. Because a conflict isn't just one big event. It's a process, a journey, with 5 pretty predictable steps. Think of it like a story. Step 1 is the causes, all that stuff we just covered. Those causes shape our perceptions, how we see the situation. Is this a threat, an opportunity? That perception then determines our intentions. Are we going to fight, or are we going to try to make peace? From there, we pick our strategies, the actual things we do and say. And all of that leads us to the final step, the outcomes, the results of the whole process. Okay, so that's the process. Now let's get super practical. When you're smack in the middle of a conflict, how do you actually respond? Well, people usually fall into one of 4 main styles. And this table breaks it down really well. First, there's smoothing. That's when you just accommodate the other person to keep the peace. The outcome? A classic lose-win. You lose, they win. Or you could go the opposite route with forcing, trying to win at all costs. That's a win-lose. Then there's compromising. You meet in the middle, right? But the thing is, nobody really walks away getting what they wanted. But then there's the 4th option,
confronting. And this doesn't mean yelling. It means facing the problem head-on, together, to find a solution where everyone wins, a true win-win.
So here's the bottom line. In almost all of those other scenarios, lose-lose, lose-win, win-lose, at least one person walks away unhappy. The absolute goal, the gold standard we should all be shooting for, is the win-win. That's where both people are satisfied, where both of their goals are actually met. It's not about beating someone, it's about solving the puzzle together.
So how in the world do we actually get to that win-win?
Well, the most powerful tool we have is negotiation. And I'm not talking about haggling over a car here. This is a real, structured process for working together to solve a problem.
Let's be clear on what we mean. Negotiation is simply a process where people talk through their differences to try and find an agreement that makes everyone happy. Notice the key words there, everyone's interests.
And it's not some messy, chaotic thing. There's a clear 5-step process you can follow. First, you do your homework, preparation and planning. Then, you both agree on the ground rules for the conversation. Step 3 is all about making your case. You clarify and justify your position. Then comes the main event. You bargain and problem solve together. And finally, you wrap it up with closure and implementation. You make a deal and figure out how to make it happen.
So this really brings us full circle. Remember how we started? Thinking of conflict as this thing we have to avoid? Well, after all this, let's ask that question again. Is conflict actually good or bad?
And the answer, as you can probably guess, is it depends entirely on how you handle it. If you manage it poorly, yeah, it's a total disaster. It tanks productivity, creates a ton of stress, and wrecks relationships. But if you handle it well, oh man, it becomes this amazing engine for creativity, for better problem solving. It actually encourages communication, strengthens relationships, and pushes for positive change. It's the same energy, just pointed in a constructive direction instead of a destructive one.
So, I'm going to leave you with one final thought. The next time you feel that tension rising, that you're in a disagreement, are you going to fall back into that old habit of seeing it as a threat you need to run from? Or are you going to see it for what it really can be? An opportunity. An opportunity to create something new, something better, together.